What's the sort of timeline we're looking at?
For if you're looking at buying a first home and unlocking your KiwiSaver, you really need to get your application in fairly rapidly. You can use your KiwiSaver to pay the deposit on your first home, but it does mean that you've got to galvanise yourself quite quickly, get all your paperwork in and get it across to the lawyer that's going to be dealing with that as soon as you can.
I guess the other way is if they've got some deposits, but they're depending on the KiwiSaver as well, then they could pay the deposit in 2 lots. That's another possibility.
Yes, that's another good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Merrin Tharran.
Hi, I'm Sany Callanan from Davenports Law.
And this is Property Espresso. Sandy, you've been in the business for quite a while, over 30, 35 years?
I have, yes.
And serving the local area.
This area in particular.
Yeah, you're a megastar in the area, and I would imagine that you've got a lot of customers and clients who will keep coming back to you.
There are a lot of repeat customers, but we would also enjoy new people coming along, especially those first home buyers we haven't seen before.
Okay. Yeah, that's good.
We're noticing in the market that first home buyers, it's an opportunity to really get in there for the first time to buy your home. And the banks are reciprocating. They're really pushing the first home buyers and making sure that they're looked after, which is actually something we haven't seen for a while.
It's a bit of a turnaround, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've found that first time buyers almost gave up for a while.
They did.
Particularly 2021 when the prices were so high and the banks were being a little bit resistant in lending as well. And I know of cases where people have gone back to get their pre-approval done again, and they've ended up with being given 100,000 less than the previous time. And now that's turning the other way, and the banks are jumping over each other to provide cashbacks of 5.
So 1% of your borrowing is what the offer is from the banks at the moment. So that's a cash incentive. The only condition is that you stay with that particular bank for 2 years. But for example, if you're borrowing $800,000, they give you a nice little cash incentive. The bank does of $8,000, which is a lot.
That's good.
Yeah.
And 2 years isn't very long, really. I mean, when you look at fixed-term mortgages, the offers there at the moment are around about 4.99% for 2 years, and that's a great deal for first-time buyers.
It is. And I think the banks are recognising that young people particularly, they're going to be in the marketplace for a while. They're going to be sort of 40 years being employed, and so they're really quite a good bet these days. I think the banks were a little bit nervous back in the day when interest rates were a bit high and they were worried about young people being able to service their loans. But I think the banks are coming around to thinking that these are going to be really good customers. So if you're a first home buyer, please get into the market now. I think it's the best time.
Absolutely. And I think we're on that cusp. When you look at the trend line from the last 30 years, it's not just a straight line going up, it's a curve. And if you wait long enough, you'll blink and you miss it. So the time is to get into it now.
I think so. And the other thing about jumping into the market is that, it is a little bit scary if you haven't bought your first home, but it's way better than paying rent. And I think the rental market, it sort of slowed a little bit, but I think we are seeing increased rentals. So it really is a good time to buy a few if you never bought before.
Yeah, and there's certainly been a lot of newer builds that are in that first home buyer range. Townhouses, apartments, and I wouldn't say there's an oversupply of them, but it's becoming that way. So first-time buyers, I think it's a great opportunity because you can command your own price and your own details with the banks as well. So I'll get in there now.
And you can unlock your KiwiSaver, and all you have to, the criteria for unlocking it is that you're a first home buyer and that you are going to live in the property for at least 6 months. It will be your main home. The other opportunity too with KiwiSaver is that sometimes people, have a first home, but for whatever reason their marriage breaks up or that sort of thing. But there is what we call a second chance opportunity for KiwiSavers to go in a second time and unlock that KiwiSaver.
What's the sort of timeline we're looking at?
For if you're looking at buying a first home and unlocking your KiwiSaver, you really need to get your application in fairly rapidly. You can use your KiwiSaver to pay the deposit on your first home, but it does mean that you've got to galvanise yourself quite quickly, get all your paperwork in and get it across to the lawyer that's going to be dealing with that as soon as you can.
I guess the other way is if they've got some deposits, but they're depending on the KiwiSaver as well, then they could pay the deposit in 2 lots. That's another possibility.
Yes, that's another good idea.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And I guess, the market is changing and there's a lot more optimism out there. There's a lot more confidence. Businesses are starting to invest more, which is a good sign. And there's always going to be that turnover of population. You hear in the news, there's more people leaving than there are returning to New Zealand, but there are new people coming in all the time.
And that's another opportunity we see with the new overseas investment regulations coming into force on the 1st of April of this year, that the government are seeking to sort of slightly relax some of those rules, which would enable overseas investors who wouldn't qualify, but when they put their application into the state purchase a home, that will be dealt with more rapidly, and the criteria for looking at them, I think, and the criteria is if you have monies of up to $5 million, then you're going to possibly get in to be able to purchase a home here. There are a number of rules around it, but I think it gives an opportunity for people to consider purchasing in New Zealand that haven't looked at it before because they're not a New Zealand resident. But if you're an Australian or a Singaporean or a New Zealand resident, you have, as a matter of right, the ability to purchase a residential property here in New Zealand. But for others that don't fit those categories, I think the new regulations will allow the fast track of their application and more sort of relaxed rules around that. So it's worth having a look at that and contacting your lawyer if you're overseas about that.
Mm-hmm. I guess you have to have a bank account in New Zealand.
Yes, you do, but again, if you go to the likes of a trading bank, I'm not promoting ASB, but I know, for example, ASB and some of the big trading banks are actually setting up bank accounts now for overseas folk while they're still out of the country. They're doing various cross checks and things, but they are able to set them up in New Zealand, even despite the fact that they're not resident here in New Zealand.
Okay.
So
That's
a bit of a change.
Yeah, it is very much a change, and obviously looking forward to those buyers coming over and making allowances for them. You mentioned Australia and Singapore. Whenever I post any properties or posts, I target those areas, and Singapore seems to have the highest engagement rate of any of those targets, and it does make me wonder whether they're going to start coming over and buying now.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm not sure that we've been really good at promoting the fact that Singaporeans, because of a trade negotiation with our country, have, as of right, the ability to purchase land here in New Zealand, residential homes. So all you Singaporeans out there, you're very welcome to come and purchase homes here in New Zealand. You're allowed to do it legally.
Yeah. Yep. And they won't come under that umbrella of having to buy properties that have more than a certain value.
No, they can come in as of right, doesn't matter what the price is.
Yeah, but certainly those ones that are higher value, 2 million to 5 million, there's going to be more competition going forward if the rules do change. And I think they're being reviewed, is it on the 1st of April?
Yes. Yes. No, I think it's our economy has got through its worst, and we're now in a situation that the government tells us is that our economy is starting to look a bit more buoyant out there, and And it bodes well for our young people, especially looking at the decrease in interest rates. And I think, generally it's obviously with dairy that's doing really well at the moment. So that's one of our biggest exporters, and they're doing extremely well. So that bodes very well for our economy generally.
That's good. I guess from the media that's out there as well, when you do look at that whole overseas investment office rule, the government's going to make quite a bit of money, over $700 million a year if this is changed. So I think it's to everybody's advantage. And if you've got first-time buyers buying at the bottom of the market and overseas investment office people that are dealing with these overseas buyers, if they're managing to get through, then you get a higher value being dealt with. So the bit in the middle will either move up or down, but there's going to be movement, which is good.
Yes, and that's why it's an opportune time for our first-time buyers to jump into that market before things start to go up in price.
Yep.
And I think, obviously, like you say, Aaron, the higher value properties are going to be sought after, so we're going to get some movement there as well.
The last group of people that we haven't really mentioned are investors, and investors are coming back now. The banks are being more reasonable and more willing to lend to investors, and I think that could be the start of something as well.
Absolutely. It's been good to see that they're coming back.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you do need advice as a first-time buyer or overseas investment office or anything to do legally with real estate, contact Sandy.
Sandy Callanan at Davenports store in Albany. I'd be delighted to help you and see you.
Yeah, and I recommend Sandy all the time. So very trusted advisor and very good lawyer. And if you need to look to buy property or looking to sell, contact me, Aaron Darren, and our details are below. Thank you very much.